Anywho, I'm going to kick us off in this next section by talking about diversity, equity and inclusion. These initiatives, right, they're a wasteful racket, it's been found, costing taxpayers £557 million, if I can speak, a year, which Ben Leo probably thinks is pocket change. Now, I say it's about time that government have actually noticed this. Most of these schemes are rubbish. They're full of divisive concepts like unconscious bias, white privilege, and often actually make tensions worse. So these employers virtue signalling with these knee-jerk DEI efforts without evidence that they work, it's shocking. And I think it's absolutely right for Kemi Badenoch to highlight this, but I think she could have gone further. She should actually say that we ought to highlight merit in this country. Merit should matter, not immutable characteristics.
Well, look, obviously merit is very important, it's critical, but the problem is that for so long, people from certain backgrounds, certain minority groups, certain walks of life have not had the chance for their merit and their talent to rise to the top. And that's why I think it's so important that we have these kind of things. You know, go back 40 or 50 years and don't tell me that a woman in the office was going to get a fair bite at the cherry to progress in her career. Don't tell me that 30 years ago there weren't any black people that were capable of running FTSE 100 companies. Of course there were people intellectually capable of that, but the opportunities weren't there because there was prejudice towards them. And that's why this is important.
More people of ethnic minorities than you may think actually think this is total tokenistic nonsense, and actually they don't find it progressive.
Well,
I think that, you know, it's very easy for white liberals to say, oh yes, we need to give everyone a helping hand up the ladder and all this through these types of schemes, through quotas, etc., etc. But actually, if you talk to people who are from ethnic minority backgrounds, they often don't think those things.
All right,
Albie.
I will give my opinion on behalf of all ethnic minority
well,
people.
Well, you can't.
In the country, apparently. Look, I think there's truth in actually what both of you are saying. Some of this stuff is quite tokenistic. It is quite, you know, oh, well, if there's one black person in the room, we've solved the problem. And then, on the other hand, we do know that there have historically been disparities that need to be closed. But I do think we do have to get to a point in society where we say we have equality under the law, what more can the state actually do to solve this problem? And that's why I think Kemi Badenoch is actually doing something quite interesting here, because she's talking about things like rainbow lanyards, for example. I think they stopped some funding to some rainbow lanyards programme in the NHS, and it's something that a lot of LGBT groups are quite angry about. And I say to them, look, I can't say I'm that angry about it because I would just expect if I go to a hospital or to go and see my GP that they are not going to be homophobic, the same way that I expect them not to be racist. So I don't need my GP to wear a Black Lives Matter symbol for me to know they're not racist. So why would I need them to wear a rainbow lanyard for me to know that they're not homophobic?
But Ben, we have discovered, right, that £557 million of taxpayer money has been spent by the taxpayer on these DEI industries, essentially, to leech off the taxpayer. As a significant taxpayer yourself, do you think that's a good use of taxpayer money?
It's just all a scam. As Albie has said, we've got laws now protecting this kind of thing these days. Benjamin was talking about 30 and 40 years ago. Hello,
yeah, I know,
it's 2024. We've moved on.
Yeah, but how did we move on? We moved on because we recognised the problem and we understood that we had to level the playing field.
DEI wasn't around 30 and 40 years ago.
The Equality Act is what enshrined all of this into law. That's been there since 2010.
Exactly, and we have seen a massive improvement. The number of women in senior posts, the number of ethnic minorities running big businesses, having senior posts in the NHS, has considerably improved.
Do you not think that is a natural progression, though, rather than because of DEI diversity and inclusion exercises in workplaces?
I think both things
think it's
happen.
because this country allows people to succeed, whatever background you come from, in terms of your ethnicity. But, you know, I went to school with a very diverse group of young women, and they all have done extraordinarily well. Their parents did extraordinarily well too. In this country, I think sometimes you're pretending like we're living decades ago. Actually, some ethnic minorities are at the highest of industries in this country.
And also, this DEI stuff isn't just about equality and black people and gay people. It's about absolute nonsense. For example, calling women womb owners or birth givers and all that kind of nonsense. It's not just about the standard kind of equality we'd expect. It's descended into an absolute farce of, boxing.
It's not about that.
It is like that. It's all like that.
All the evidence says that people who are in charge, who are hiring, tend to hire people who look like themselves. Now, that cuts in different directions. If you have a sort of a black boss, they're likely to choose someone who looks like themselves too. But when you have a scenario, as we undoubtedly did, where the vast majority of senior posts in this country were white, heterosexual men, that was a problem that had to be overcome. And these kind of diversity and equality
was the majority of the
moves
workforce, to be fair.
The majority of the workforce isn't straight white men.
No,
white straight
you
men
said
like
you were
that,
talking
like
about
they're
the
a
past.
problem that need to be solved. What a grotesque thing to say.
They do need to be solved
racist.
because you have so many inadequate white blokes who get senior posts because they look the part. One of them was Prime Minister, for God's sake, in Boris Johnson.
You all know who Baroness Helena Morrissey is. You must know her, of course. She is quite a champion on these issues with her 50-50 bald programme. That's not a quota. That is just encouraging women to get into senior positions in the City of London. Would you sit here if Helena was on this panel?
But I would
Lady Morrissey,
question.
and
I would
say,
even
"That is
question.
wrong."
I would even question why we need 50-50 representation on boards. This is where feminism sometimes goes wrong. They focus on this, the top echelons of society rather than issues that affect the vast majority of women. I don't think most women are sitting there worrying about whether the board at a FTSE 100 company has a 50-50 ratio when it comes to representation of females. It's just such a niche issue for most
It's
women.
not, though, because I think especially in commercial industries, you can't do a great job if you don't understand the people buying your product.
There are so many women-only brands. There are so many women-only companies, right, that have emerged. Do you think that we should have 50% of those being men on their boards?
Well, I mean, I don't know which brands you're talking about. Look,
That would be
the
ridiculous.
people that were deciding the funding for the Barbie film were all men. That's one of the things that the stars have talked about, a real problem. The fact is that the reason so many big businesses...
That's such a, that's movies and film. That's not really relevant to most
It's big
people.
business, especially for this country. But look, one of the reasons that lots of businesses have embraced this, especially banks, the City of London, is because they know that when they have a diverse workforce, they have a more informed workforce.
No, I agree.
They have
It's a
more
good thing to have
representative
different
workforce.
people, but the idea
That's
of
not why,
quotas
though. That
and
is complete
being
nonsense.
told about white privilege is not going to get us
It's because of the law. It's because it's law. The people have to do all
These
of
places
this.
go
It's
way
ESG
beyond the law.
Benjamin, do you say the same thing about the NBA, which is probably 90% black? Would you go
What's
over
that? The National Basketball...
American basketball, the
Right.
top basketball league in the world, or the
Should it be
English
more diverse?
or the English 100-metre sprinters, all black? Have you got a problem with that?
I mean, when it comes...
Maybe crazy idea.
So quick, yes.
Well, hang on, when it comes to sport,
Crazy
it's
idea.
it's
Maybe
slightly
some
different.
people are just good for the job and good in their field. Doesn't have to be 50-50 or
and yet
box tick here, box
you're
tick there.
still on the panel.
well...
Well, I think that was a bit of a non-answer, but never mind.